On Friday, February 24, 1989, female teacher Yumi Tanaka went to the bathroom after returning home from work. After she used the toilet, she also habitually glanced at the toilet mouth, vaguely saw a shoe. She wondered if the cover of the sewage outlet outside was not properly covered. After she inspected the sewage outlet, she immediately screamed because what she saw was a human leg. She was frightened, and immediately looked for a colleague to help. After everyone's reconfirmation, it was indeed a human leg, so she hurriedly called the police. The police station quickly dispatched police and rushed to the scene along with 3 firefighters from the village. They tried to drag this person out of the pipe, but because the pipeline is too narrow, they tried for a long time without success. The next day, the police called an excavator and a crane, first dug the entire pipeline out of the ground, and then used the crane to lift it up. The person hiding in the pipe was undoubtedly dead long ago. After the police used clean water to clean the scene, they discovered a strange thing. The man was naked to the top and he was holding a neatly folded coat in his hands. And his posture is very strange. The whole person is curled up into a ball, perfectly stuck in the pipe. There is almost no room for movement. When the corpse's fecal face was gradually cleaned, some of the onlookers exclaimed and found that it was Naoyuki Kanno. This Kanno Naoyuki is an outstanding young man in the village with a good reputation. In high school, he joined a band as a guitarist and was a member of a local football team. Now he works in a nuclear power plant maintenance company in a neighboring town, as the director of the sales department, and also the chairman of the youth club in the village. According to forensic identification, Kanno's death was caused by circulatory disorders in the thoracic respiratory system. In other words, he was suffocated to death in this dirty and narrow tube. After confirming the identity of the deceased, the police immediately contacted Kanno's family. Kanno's parents told the police that at around 10 a.m. on the 24th, Kanno's father heard his son's voice from the hallway, "I'll go out for a while." He heard the sound of closing the door and leaving, and never saw his son again. Until the 27th, the day before Kanno's body was found, someone found Kanno's car in the parking lot of the agricultural cooperative. At this time, the 2 old men were already very upset. They were eager to know where their son had gone. However, 2 friends of Kanno assured his parents, "We are looking for him, and we may be able to find him tomorrow." Then Kanno's body was discovered a day later. Agricultural cooperative was only more than 100 meters away from the scene of the murder. When the police found Kanno's car, it was found that the key was still in the car, and in addition to the shoe found in the urinal, another leather shoe appeared on a slope several hundred meters from the scene of the murder. Leaving the key in the car means that no matter what Kanno intends to do when he leaves the car, he is not going to stay for a long time, and the bizarre position of the leather shoes is even more confusing. Since no evidence was found at the scene, the police could only judge that he was going to take a peek at Miss Tanaka, who was going to the toilet. The statement, "Naoki Kanno is a voyeur," was strongly protested by his family. Kanno is a young man of outstanding character and ability. There is no reason to use this method to spy on women. And he and Yumi Tanaka are good friends, and he must know that she was not at home at all those days. Just before the incident, the village started a general election for the village chief. As a representative of the youth in the village, Kanno participated in assisting the election. Driven by Kanno's active speech and excellent incitement, the camp he assisted won the election with a narrow lead. Fukushima Prefecture is where Japan's nuclear power plant is located, and a piece of land in Miyakaji village has been selected as a nuclear power plant expansion area. As the village chief who mediates with the nuclear power plant, his faction firmly supports the construction of a nuclear power plant, which makes it easy to doubt him. Did they take political bribes from nuclear power companies? Some villagers confirmed that Kanno himself was very disappointed in discovering the village chief's corruption. At that time, he not only withdrew from the village chief's faction, but also publicly condemned the village chief's dishonesty, which might have caused the village chief to want to kill him. There is another possible murderer. Miss Tanaka is good friends with Kanno, and her fiancé is also a friend of Kanno. For some time before the incident, Miss Tanaka had been harassed by telephones of unknown origin. Kanno thought of a way and installed a recording device on Miss Tanaka's phone, and finally recorded the harasser's voice. According to the testimony of a villager, Kanno mentioned this incident and claimed that, "I already know who made the harassing call." At the youth association meeting on the 23rd before Kanno's disappearance, Kanno's juniors were politely rejected by Kanno when he advised him to drink. Kanno said, "I have made an appointment to meet someone the next day," but Kanno didn't say who he would meet. So some people wondered if he found the real culprit of the harassing call, and decided to resolve the matter with him privately, possibly being murdered by the other party during the meeting. Now you must be full of confusion about this case. Let us try to reason about how Kanno died. Was it suicide, accident, or homicide? First, suicide. Suicides usually leave a suicide note, and there is no relevant physical evidence in this case. The most common suicide methods are hanging, jumping, poisoning, cutting the wrist. No one would choose this kind of long and painful method that would make him bear the title of perverted sex monster to end his life. Judging from his performance a few days before the incident, dining with friends, saying goodbye to his father before going out, there is no possibility that Kanno suddenly wants to die on a whim. Therefore, the argument of suicide can basically be ruled out. Accidental death. Is it possible, as the police said, that this Kanno is a pervert? Unless Kanno has a different obsession with filth such as feces and urine, there is no reason to sneak into an empty toilet pipe to peep. After all, the most basic requirement of a professional pervert stalker is to keep abreast of the whereabouts of girls. If he intends to peep, how could he not know about the female teacher returning to her hometown? Of course, there is a 1% chance that he is a voyeur, but he misunderstood the date of Yumi's return home, mistakenly thought that she would be back soon, or tested it in advance for the sake of successful voyeurism. But if he wants to peep, logically he will do some preparatory work before peeping. First of all, anyone knows that this kind of pipe is easy to get in, but it is difficult to get out. It should be necessary to prepare some props such as lubricating fluid in advance, but Kanno did not bring anything. Second is the temperature problem. According to the weather data on the internet, the average temperature in Fukushima Prefecture in February was below 3 degrees. There are also claims that a snow fell in the village during the incident, and the thickness of the snow was as high as 20 centimeters. In such a cold weather environment, it is difficult to explain why Kanno chose to take off his shirt and expose his body. Finally, the shoe that appeared on the hillside a few hundred meters from the scene is also one of the key points, because it is impossible for him to run to the hillside first and take off a shoe, then step on the thick snow with his bare feet, and come back to the toilet to start peeping. The existence of this shoe also led to another conjecture. Was Kanno avoiding some threat and had to go into the tunnel and was unfortunately killed? This statement can indeed explain why the shoes appeared hundreds of meters away from the crime scene, but I think the possibility is also extremely small. Because from the normal logic, would anyone really choose such a dead-end place to hide? If you were being chased by someone, you should run away to the street with a lot of people and easy to ask for help. Even if he has to hide in this cesspit, he should put his feet in first. On the one hand, his head can be used to check the external situation at any time, and it is also easy to crawl out of the pipe. Imagine that Kanno encountered a killer and had to hide upside down in a pipe. Isn't it reminiscent of the ridiculous sight of an ostrich burying its head in the sand? At any rate, Kanno is a person, not a bird, and I don't think he will use this self-deception to avoid threats. Therefore, excluding accidental deaths with the extremely small possibility of death, it is not difficult for us to come to the final conclusion: Kanno was murdered. Since it is determined to be a murder case, there are several doubts that need to be answered. How did the murderer put Kanno into the pipe? What was the motive of the murderer? Who is the identity of the murderer? The place where Kanno drove to was probably near the slope. After Kanno met that unknown person, he probably got knocked out, and the guy snatched his car key, drove to the agricultural cooperative to park the car. There, the key was deliberately left, creating the illusion that Kanno drove directly to the toilet to peep. The murderer stuffed the unconscious Kanno into the pipe. When a person is in a coma, the tight muscles will become loose, and it is not difficult to plug them into the pipes that are usually difficult to enter. But there is a problem here, that is, why does the murderer have to spend so much time and effort? The answer is that the murderer tried to frame Sagano into a perverted voyeur who likes to drill in a cesspit. The murderer should be the stalker targeting the female teacher. Because of this, the murderer is not worried about Sagano asking others for help in order to escape. Because even if someone could rescue him immediately, when Kanno was discovered in this way, he was covered in feces and urine, he would bear the title of perverted sex monster because of this matter. The murderer plans to make Kanno lose his credibility, and even when Kanno exposes his harassment in the future, no one will believe him. When the unconscious Kanno woke up in the foul-smelling pipe, he was panicked and shivered in the bitter cold. The narrow urinal opening in front of him became the only hope for survival. As time passed, he was in the toilet. The cry for help became weaker and weaker as his consciousness gradually became blurred. He could only hold tightly the sweater that was taken off, hoping to maintain the little remaining body temperature, but unfortunately, no one heard his desperate cry during that long winter night. We can make a simple profile of the murderer. 1. The murderer is a powerful adult male. Considering that he may have inspected the conditions of the pipeline on the spot, his body will not be too tall too. The murderer is very familiar with the environment near the school and can find a route to sneak in without being witnessed. 3. The murderer has a certain knowledge of drugs and has the ability to obtain sufficient doses of drugs. 4. The murderer had a strong sense of counter-investigation, and his actions were not noticed by any witnesses, and there were no obvious clues left on the scene. 5. The murderer has a good social background. He is likely to be married and have a harmonious family, so he is very afraid that Kanno will expose his scandal. 6. The murderer is probably someone Kanno knew well, so Kanno chose to meet him privately. From these clues, it can be judged that the murderer is probably a doctor or a policeman. Such an identity allows him to move freely on the street without causing suspicion during the time of the national holiday. If it is a policeman, he may even personally participate in the on-site investigation and evidence collection, and can easily destroy some evidence that is not good for him. There are so many doubts in the Kanno case, and this case deserves more attention and investigation. However, the police insisted that there is no possibility of homicide. Unfortunately, to this day, Kanno is still a hapless person who has been labeled as a perverted voyeur. This is in stark contrast to his glorious life history during his lifetime. But what the truth is, I'm afraid we'll never know this. Thank you for watching. Our channel regularly shares about criminal cases and unsolved mysterious. If you like these stories, please don't forget to subscribe to us. Thank you.